In the center of the great galaxy, there was a powerful alien empire known as the Varelians. They were tall, strong, and had sharp golden eyes. The royal family was known for their perfect beauty and strong powers. But not every member of the royal bloodline was accepted. Princess Valira was born blind. Her eyes were clouded white and her body was weak. Her legs were thin, her arms too soft. She could not walk without help, and she could not fight like the others. From the moment she was born, the royal court looked at her with sadness and shame. She was called the Broken One in whispers across the empire. When Valira was old enough to speak, she asked why others didn't speak to her. The servants stayed silent. The nobles bowed but never smiled. She lived in a room made of crystal, beautiful but lonely. Her father, the emperor, gave her food and comfort, but not love. To him, she was a mistake that could not be erased. As part of royal tradition, all princesses had to form a life bond with a partner. This bond gave them more power and connected their souls forever. When it was time for Valira to find her bondmate, suitors came from all over the galaxy. They wore shining armor, carried family rings, and looked like heroes from stories. But when they saw Valira, they stepped back. One by one, they refused her. "She cannot see," said one. "She cannot walk," said another. "She is cursed," said a third. The high priest told the emperor, "No one will bond with her. The ritual would be a waste." The emperor did not argue. He closed the bonding ceremony early and sent Valira back to her crystal room. She did not cry. She had no more tears left. She simply sat in silence, feeling the cold walls and the emptiness in her chest. Years passed. Valira remained alone. The galaxy forgot her name. Even her people stopped speaking of her. In their minds, she did not exist. But one day, a human ship arrived at the Empire's port. It was small and old, with scratches on its wings and smoke in its tail. The ship belonged to a traveler named Jason. He was not a prince. He had no army, no riches, and no family name known across the stars. But he had courage, and he had questions. Jason had come to study the ways of the Varelians. He visited their cities, watched their rituals, and spoke with the priests. He learned about their bonding customs. He heard about the royal family, and he asked the one question that no one expected. What happened to the blind princess? The guards told him to stay quiet. The people told him to forget. But Jason kept asking. His words spread through the city like fire. Soon they reached the emperor's ears. The emperor called Jason to the palace. "You come from a small world," the emperor said. "Why do you ask about something that is not your concern?" Jason answered, "Because no one deserves to be forgotten, not even a blind princess." The emperor narrowed his eyes. "You do not understand our ways. Leave this matter, or leave this empire." Jason did not leave. That night, he went to the palace gardens. There, hidden behind tall walls, he found a single crystal tower. And through the glass he saw her, Valira. She sat alone, her face still, her hands resting on her lap. Though blind, she felt his presence. She turned her head toward him and spoke softly. "Who are you?" Jason said, "My name is Jason. I come from Earth. I came to learn, but I found a mystery instead." Valira tilted her head. "Why do you speak to me?" "Others do not." Jason answered, "Because I see something they don't." "What do you see?" she asked. Jason took a deep breath. "A soul. A mind. A light no one has noticed," the guards shouted. The moment broke. Jason was pulled away. The emperor was furious. He declared that Jason had broken the law. Speaking to the hidden princess was forbidden, but the people had already heard. A human had seen her. A human had spoken with her. Whispers turned into questions. Why did he go to her? What did he see? Why did the bond fail before, but now something is different? In the heart of the empire, something had changed. Valira sat quietly in her tower, but for the first time in years she smiled. Someone had seen her, not with eyes, but with heart, and that was just the beginning. The palace was no longer silent. After Jason's bold visit to Princess Valira, the empire was buzzing. Nobles whispered in fear. Servants spoke in secret. No one had dared to speak with Valira for years, and now a human had done it without shame. The emperor was furious. In the throne room, filled with golden walls and glowing lights, Jason was brought before the ruler of the Varelian Empire. The emperor sat high on his crystal throne, his eyes sharp like blades. "You touched what is hidden," the emperor said. "You broke our rule." Jason stood tall. He did not kneel. He did not shake. "I only spoke with someone you choose to ignore," he said calmly. The nobles gasped. Some were angry. Others were curious. The emperor's voice grew cold. "You don't understand what she is," Jason replied. "I know what she isn't. She isn't a mistake. She isn't invisible." The emperor stood. "You think you are wise, human? Then I give you a choice. Leave now and live, or face our 3 royal trials. If you pass them, I will allow the bond." Jason did not even pause. "I'll face the trials." The court fell silent. No one had ever chosen the trials for Valira. No one thought it was worth it. The emperor nodded slowly. "Very well. You may start at dawn. But know this, no outsider has ever passed even one trial. Many have died trying. You will likely be next." Jason turned and walked out of the throne room. But the message was clear. This was no longer just about love. This was now a fight between shame and truth, between an empire's pride and one human's heart. Later that night, Valira heard the news from her personal guard. She was silent for a moment. Then she asked one soft question. "He chose the trials?" "Yes, Princess." A tear rolled down her cheek. No one had ever fought for her, until now. Most people fear the dark. Jason had never feared it, until now. At sunrise, he stood at the edge of a deep black cave on the moon of Drax. The cave was old, wide, and full of silence. No light, no map, no guide, just stone and shadows. This was his first trial, to enter the darkness alone and find the crystal of trust. No weapons, no lights, no help, only what was inside his heart. The Varelians believed that true strength came from light, but this test was different. To pass it, Jason would have to become like Valira, live without sight, move without eyes, and believe without proof. He stepped inside. The cave swallowed him. The air turned cold. He stretched out his hands but touched nothing. Each step echoed, forever. It was like falling into emptiness. Jason closed his eyes. It didn't matter. They couldn't help him here anyway. He thought of Valira, how she must have felt, trapped in her tower, blind to the world, but still alive inside. He imagined how she moved, how she listened, how she felt everything. So he began to feel a small breeze, a tiny sound, a soft vibration from the stone below. He followed these signs, slowly, carefully, patiently. Hours passed. Jason didn't speak. He didn't panic, he just moved forward. Then he stumbled. His hand brushed against something rough, then smooth. Cold, then warm. The crystal. He held it tightly. A soft hum filled the cave. The crystal glowed in his hand, not bright, but enough. Enough to show the way out. He had passed. The priests outside waited with doubt in their eyes. When Jason walked out of the cave holding the glowing crystal, even the most silent priest gasped. No outsider has ever done this. Without tools. Jason looked at them. I didn't need tools. I needed to understand her world. Word spread quickly. The first trial was complete. The human had succeeded, not by force, but by trust. Valera smiled when she heard. He felt the dark and didn't run. She knew then. Jason was different. And maybe, just maybe, her world was beginning to change. Strength. That's what the galaxy respected. Muscles, weapons, titles. That was the way of the Varelian Empire, and the second trial was built to prove it. But Jason wasn't built like them. He had no armor, no sword, no royal blood, just a voice, a heart, and a will that wouldn't bend. The second trial was not a fight with fists. It was a battle of truth. Jason was placed in the circle of fire, a large stone ring surrounded by flames. Across from him stood 5 former suitors of Princess Valera. They were strong, proud, and angry. Each one had once come to claim the princess, but left after seeing her weakness. Now, they returned, not to win her, but to crush the one who dared. To believe in her. "You insult our ways," said the first, a noble commander. "You think love makes you strong? She is nothing," said the second. "We rejected her for a reason." Jason didn't shout. He didn't shake. He spoke clearly. "You rejected her because you were afraid, not of her weakness, but of your own hearts." The crowd grew silent. The third suitor laughed. "We don't need hearts, we have power." Jason stepped forward. "Then why are you all here, fighting a human who came with nothing?" The words hit deep. Even the guards at the edge of the ring leaned in to listen. Jason raised his voice, just a little. "She may be blind, but she sees more than any of you. She may be weak, but she's stronger than your pride." The flames around the ring flared. The suitors had no answer. One by one they lowered their heads, not in defeat, but in respect. The high priest walked forward. "Jason of Earth, you have won, not by force, but by speaking truth." Outside the circle of fire, many began to wonder, could this human change the Empire's heart? Valera heard the story. She held her hands together and whispered, "He speaks for me, like I've waited my whole life for." She did not cry, but her soul did. For once, someone had fought for her name and won. Some bonds are made by blood, some by power, but the strongest bonds are made by choice. Jason had passed 2 impossible trials. He had walked through darkness and faced proud warriors without lifting a hand. But the final trial was something no one could prepare for: the bonding trial. This trial was ancient. Only true soulmates could pass it. In the history of the Varelian Empire, many had tried. Some succeeded. Most failed. The ritual was clear. The souls of 2 beings must connect in the crystal chamber. If their bond was real, the chamber would glow with shared light. If not, nothing would happen. Or worse, rejection could hurt both hearts forever. Jason entered the chamber alone at first. The floor was made of clear stone. The air was thick with energy. Floating crystals hung above like frozen stars. Then Valera was brought in. She was calm but quiet. Her steps were guided. Her hands shook slightly. This was the first time she had been allowed into the chamber, something that had been denied to her all her life. The priests watched closely. The Emperor sat in silence. Jason looked at her and smiled. "You don't have to be afraid," Valera whispered. "I'm not afraid of the trial. I'm afraid I'm not enough." Jason stepped closer. "You are more than enough. If I can share my soul with anyone in the universe, I want it to be you." They placed their hands together. The crystals above stayed still. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber was silent. Some priests began to whisper. One said, "She has no power." Another said, "The bond will fail." Then Jason did something no one expected. He knelt down and said, "I offer my strength, all of it. If her soul cannot shine alone, let it shine with mine." Suddenly, the chamber pulsed with light. Not a small glow, but a bright, rising wave of energy that filled every corner of the room. The floating crystals began to spin. The walls vibrated with warmth. The bond had formed. But it didn't come from Valera. It came from Jason. And because of that, it activated a hidden power inside her. Her fingers twitched, her spine straightened. For the first time in years, she stood without help. The Emperor stood, stunned. The priests dropped to their knees. This was no ordinary bond. This was something new. A human and an alien. A broken princess and a fearless soul. Two lives connecting. Not for power, not for gain, but for belief. Jason helped Valera step forward. She was smiling. Her eyes were still blind, but now her spirit was shining brighter than anyone had ever seen. The Empire didn't know how to react. For centuries, the bonding chamber had judged the worth of royals. It had always followed rules. Power chose power. Beauty chose strength. But this time, the chamber had chosen something else, a human, and a princess the Empire had already thrown away. The next morning, all across the Varelian cities, the news spread like fire. The bond is real. The human awakened her power. The princess walked. Some were amazed. Some were afraid. At the royal court, arguments broke out. "This is dangerous," said a war general. "What if humans can unlock others like her?" "This bond breaks our blood traditions," shouted a noblewoman. "It could change everything." The Emperor sat in silence. His face showed no emotion. But deep inside he knew something had shifted. Jason and Valera were placed under protection. Not for their safety, but because the council didn't know what else to do with them. They were now a symbol, a question the galaxy didn't want to answer. While guards stood outside their room, Jason sat with Valera. "How do you feel?" he asked. She took a breath. "Like the air is different. Like I can finally breathe it." She slowly moved her fingers. Her body, once cold and stiff, now felt warm. The bond didn't make her perfect, but it made her feel alive. Later that night, a small group of healers entered. They tested Valera's body. Her heartbeat was stronger, her muscles responded better. And though her eyes still could not see fully, she whispered, "I can feel shadows." The healers were shocked. This is not science," one said. "This is belief." Word reached the outer colonies. Other disabled and forgotten aliens, those with broken bodies and crushed hopes, began to ask, "If the princess can rise, can we?" But not all were happy. In secret halls, high-ranking leaders met in the dark. "This human must be controlled," one said. "We must stop this before the weak begin to believe they are equal," said another. They feared a future they could not control. The Emperor finally summoned Jason and Valera again. "This bond," he said, "has caused unrest. You've shaken our history." Jason looked him in the eye. "We didn't come to shake it. We came to show it can heal." The Emperor didn't reply, but his silence spoke louder than words. Valera stepped forward on her own. No guide, no hand. "I won't be hidden again," she said. "I am not ashamed of who I am." The court froze. For the first time, the blind princess stood not as a secret, but as a voice, and the galaxy was listening. Once, she was called the Broken One. Now they called her the Princess Who Rose. The young galaxy had changed, and it started with one voice, hers. Valera stood on the grand balcony of the Imperial Palace, facing the crowd gathered below. Nobles, soldiers, scholars, and even common people had come from every star system to see the blind and disabled princess who had bonded with a human and survived. Jason stood beside her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. This was her moment. Valera raised her hand, not with perfect strength, but with perfect courage. "I was born into silence," she said, "into darkness, and for years I believed I was less." The crowd held its breath. They told me I was unworthy, that I had no place, that no one would ever bond with me. She turned slightly toward Jason. But one person saw something different. He gave me what no one else ever gave. Belief. She took another step forward. Now, I give that gift to others. The emperor, seated behind her, said nothing. He had ruled by tradition, but now even he had to watch his empire shift. Valera continued, "There are others like me, people hidden, rejected, silenced. I will find them. I will speak for them. I will lead them." A wave of cheers rose from the crowd. Even those who once doubted her could not deny her power now. Later that day, she announced the creation of a new royal mission, a journey across the galaxy to find others who had been cast aside. Not warriors, not kings, but the forgotten. Jason joined her, not as her ruler, not as her protector, but as her partner. Together, they visited moons where no royals had gone. They listened to children with broken limbs. They sat with old veterans who had lost their sight. They touched hands with those who had never been touched without pity, and everywhere they went, hope began to grow. On one dusty planet, a young girl with twisted legs asked Valera, "Can I be a princess too?" Valera knelt beside her and smiled. "You already are." The empire didn't change overnight. Some still whispered, some still judged. But the people had seen something new. A leader who didn't hide her scars. A human who didn't ask for power, but gave it. And the galaxy remembered. It remembered that strength isn't always in perfect bodies, but in unbreakable hearts.